On a bitter winter morning in California, I gave my warm boots to a stranger shivering on a frozen bench, never imagining he was one of the state's most elusive billionaires. The encounter should have been nothing more than an act of kindness, until his sudden interest in my life stirred suspicion and slowly unraveled into betrayal. When I discovered his connection to the man who broke me, I crafted a revenge plan so silent, so calculated, it rewrote the trajectory of our intertwined fates. Through twists, power plays, and fate's cold irony, I reclaimed everything that was stolen from me. And in the end, victory came not through noise but through quiet, devastating precision. I still remember how the cold bit through California that morning, an unusual, slicing kind of cold that didn't belong to the coast. It was early, the sky washed pale blue like it was holding its breath before sunrise. I was walking to work, the same route across the park, the same cracked pavement, the same cluster of pines that always trapped the winter wind in their branches. Routine, predictable, safe, or at least, it used to be. That morning was different, not because of the temperature, not because of the silence, but because of the man sitting on the bench by the frozen fountain. He looked like he had been carved out of the cold itself, still, hunched, unmoving. His coat was thin, his hands were bare, but what caught my eye were his feet. Frozen into the ground, wrapped in socks so thin they looked transparent. No shoes. No protection. Nothing. I've seen a lot of strange things in California, but never someone so still they looked unreal, like a statue left behind. Like fate holding up a sign I didn't know how to read. I should have walked past him. Anyone else would have. But something in me stopped instantly, abruptly, as if someone had pressed a hand against my chest. My life has always shifted in moments like that, quiet nudges that turn into avalanches. I approached him slowly. He didn't look up. Just breathed in shallow, controlled bursts like he'd trained himself not to need warmth. His voice, when it finally rose, was barely above a whisper. Not a greeting. Not even a plea. Just a single, hoarse exhale. Cold. I took off my boots without thinking, warm, fur-lined, the only pair I owned that could handle weather like this. I placed them by his feet. He didn't move at first. Then he lifted his head, and I saw his eyes. They were wrong. Not in a frightening way, in a knowing way. Sharp. Observant. Far too aware for someone freezing on a bench at dawn. He took the boots but didn't say thank you. Just studied me like he was memorizing something important. Something he wasn't ready to say. I left before he could ask questions. And I told myself I'd never see him again. Fate has never taken my assumptions kindly. 3 days later, he showed up at my workplace dressed in a suit that cost more than my annual rent, smiling like we'd shared a secret. And that was the moment I realized I had given my boots not to a stranger, but to a billionaire who wasn't done with me yet. But before I tell you what he wanted, you need to understand who I was before him. Before the cold mornings. Before the revelations. Before the revenge that reshaped everything in his world and mine. My name is Amelia. And this is the story of how a single act of kindness lit the fuse on a war I never intended to start. I grew up believing that quiet people survived longer. Not in a dramatic way, just, realistically, people who watched instead of spoke. People who learned patterns instead of chasing attention. People who understood the language of silence. My mother used to say I was born with my guard up. She wasn't wrong. I learned early that warmth attracts the kind of people who take advantage of it. People who smile with their mouths and lie with their eyes. People like him. But we'll get there. At 19, I moved to California for school. At 24, I was working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Most days, I was tired physically, emotionally, existentially, but I kept my head down. I didn't complain. I didn't take risks. So that morning when I gave my boots to a silent stranger felt wildly out of character. But something inside me whispered, do it. And so I did. And that small detour, that one unexpected kindness, is what led him straight to me. The next time I saw him, he didn't apologize. He didn't thank me. He simply said, you changed my day. Now let me change your life. I didn't know yet whether he meant it as a gift or a threat. Before we go deeper, if stories like this, filled with fate, irony, betrayal, and quiet revenge, pull you in, you might want to subscribe and stay with me through this journey. Now, let me take you to the moment everything began to fracture. Tension doesn't always arrive like a slammed door or a shouted accusation. Sometimes, it creeps in quietly. Like a draft slipping through a cracked window, barely noticeable until it chills your entire body. That's how it felt when he walked into my workplace. Not loud, not dramatic. Just wrong. A disturbance too subtle for the eye but too obvious for the instinct. I work at a small archival office. Dust, boxes, brittle photographs, forgotten letters, nothing glamorous. Nothing that would attract a man who could buy the entire building without blinking. Yet there he was, standing in the doorway in a charcoal suit that fit too perfectly to be anything but custom. Hair slicked back, sharp jaw clean-shaven, posture straight and confident, nothing like the shivering man on the frozen bench. Which meant one thing. He had never really been helpless. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets, that unreadable look gleaming in his eyes. The kind of look people get when they're about to cross a line you didn't know existed. "Amelia, right?" He said, not asking, confirming. I nodded. He smiled, but there was no softness to it. The smile of someone who knows things you don't. Someone who collects secrets like currency. "You gave me your boots," he said, as if I needed the reminder. He didn't thank me. He didn't apologize. He simply observed me, measured me like he was recalibrating something behind his eyes. I should have asked how he found me. I should have asked why he came. Instead, I said nothing. Because fear has a way of stealing your voice before your logic even wakes up. Before I could speak, he placed a small envelope on my desk. White, heavy, sealed. "Your kindness deserves acknowledgement," he said. "Open it when you're alone." He didn't stay for my reaction. He just walked out. The door shut behind him with a soft click. And that sound echoed in my head long after he was gone. I waited 5 minutes before touching it. 5 minutes of debating whether opening it would change something I wasn't ready for. 5 minutes of fear twisting into irritation. People don't show up uninvited with mysterious envelopes unless they want something. Finally, I slid a finger beneath the seal. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a single handwritten line. A small repayment for warmth. No signature. No number. No explanation. My heart thudded hard and uneven in my chest. You don't send someone $5,000 for a pair of boots. You don't appear at their job without introducing yourself. You don't know their name unless you've been looking for it. This wasn't gratitude. This was reconnaissance. I didn't cash the check. I didn't tear it up either. I just stared at it for hours, feeling something shift inside me. Not excitement. Not awe. Not even fear. Suspicion. A slow, creeping unease that layered itself thick behind my ribs. Because I'd seen this pattern before. Not with strangers. But with someone else. Someone who used kindness as a trap. Someone who weaponized generosity. Someone who broke me in ways I hadn't dared unpack yet. I wasn't going to let that happen again. That evening, after closing the office, I opened my laptop, typed in what little I knew. Man. Bench. Cold. California winter. Ridiculous. Useless. Then I typed, charcoal suit, billionaire, California donation patterns, frozen bench incident. Still nothing, obviously. It wasn't until I typed a single phrase, California philanthropist, custom charcoal suits, younger than 40, that I saw the first image, and my stomach dropped. It was him. Not frozen. Not helpless. Standing at a gala next to elected officials, shaking hands with CEOs. Posing with an award. Liam Calloway. Billionaire tech investor. Silent donor. Reclusive. Private. Unreachable. Except, apparently, to me. Why? The question dug into me all night. I didn't expect him to come back the next morning. But he did. This time, he wasn't alone. A black SUV pulled up beside my building. 2 men stepped out. And Liam got out after them, hands in pockets. Eyes already fixed on me through the glass. As if he'd been waiting. For me to look up. For me to notice. For me to react. But I didn't. I kept my expression still. Neutral. Unreadable. What I didn't expect was the faint curl at the corner of his mouth. Amusement. Like he liked the challenge. He walked into my office again. Slower this time. Controlled. Purposeful. "You didn't cash the check," he said. It wasn't a question. "No," I replied simply. He nodded, as if that confirmed something important to him. Then he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "You're different." Just 2 words. 2 quiet, unnerving words that settled into me like frost. Different. Different how? Different why? Before I could respond, he added, I'd like to see you again. That wasn't a request. It was a declaration. A line drawn. A tether thrown. A path laid out whether I wanted to walk it or not. I didn't agree. I didn't refuse. I simply watched him leave again. The same controlled stride. The same unreadable posture. There was something wrong with him. Or maybe something wrong with the situation. Or maybe something wrong with the part of me that didn't walk away immediately. I told myself I wasn't curious. Just cautious. But curiosity is a liar. It disguises itself as caution until you're already too deep. And it all starts with what happened later that week. When Liam Calloway appeared at a place he had no business being. My apartment. Standing right outside my door. At night. Alone. Holding something he claimed belonged to me. Something I didn't even know I'd lost. Some knocks don't sound like knocks at all. They sound like warnings. That night, when the tapping on my apartment door echoed through the hallway, I knew instantly it wasn't my neighbor, it wasn't a delivery, and it definitely wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, timed, measured, like someone rehearsed it, and when I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. Liam Calloway. Standing there, in the dim light, hands clasped behind his back, posture relaxed, too relaxed for someone who had no logical reason to know where I lived. The freezing man on a bench wasn't supposed to know my address. The billionaire in a suit wasn't supposed to show up uninvited. The stranger I helped wasn't supposed to be weaving himself into my life. Yet there he was, like an inevitability. I didn't open the door immediately. I watched him for a moment, studying the way his jaw tightened, how his gaze drifted to the floor, how his breathing stayed perfectly steady. He didn't look nervous, or impatient, or uncertain. He looked prepared. Finally, I unlocked the door but kept the chain in place. What are you doing here? I asked. No softness in my voice. No fear. Just a thin, cold line of distrust. His eyes rose to mine. I brought this back to you. He lifted something, a small leather notebook. My notebook. The one I used for grocery lists and work reminders. The one I thought I'd misplaced 3 days earlier. He held it like it meant something. Like he'd studied it. Like he'd taken his time flipping through its pages. My pulse ticked hard under my skin. How did you get that? I asked, voice flat. He tilted his head, watching me with that same unnerving stillness. You dropped it the day we met. By the bench. I didn't believe him. Not fully. But I didn't have proof. Just instinct. And instinct rarely makes a good argument. His gaze flicked to the door. May I come in? The answer was an immediate, silent no. Not a moral no, not a polite no. A survival no. But I didn't want him to know he had unsettled me. So instead of refusing, I said, it's late. A boundary disguised as a statement. He didn't push. He didn't insist. He simply nodded once and stepped back. I wanted to return it personally, he said. Turning to leave. But then, he paused. Be careful who you trust, Amelia. A warning, from the one person I trusted the least. And then he walked away. Calm, controlled. As if he hadn't just punctured a crack through the center of my quiet life. As soon as I closed the door, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He's dangerous. Don't let him in again. My skin went cold. Not because someone was warning me, but because they knew exactly who they were warning me about. I stared at the message for a long time. Long enough for worry to coil around my spine. Was this a coincidence? A prank? A misdial? No. Something told me it wasn't random. Someone was watching. Someone who knew Liam. Someone who knew me. I typed back. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, typing. Stopping. Typing again. Then finally, Calloway isn't what he pretends to be. Nothing else. No explanation. No context. Just a knife of a sentence left bleeding in my inbox. I should have ignored it. I should have blocked the number. But instead, doubt bloomed like frost patterns across glass. Who was Liam really? What did he want? And why did a stranger think I needed protection? The next morning, I did something I should have done earlier. I dug deeper. Not into Liam's wealth that was public. Not into his philanthropy that was curated. Not into his accomplishments that was noise. I dug into his absences. The gaps in his timeline, the months he disappeared from the public eye. The deals he walked away from. The people he never spoke about. And one detail caught my attention. 2 years earlier, Liam had abruptly severed ties with another investor. No explanation. No official statement. Just a quiet, violent end to their partnership. The investor's name? Julian Harlow. My ex. The one who broke me. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. The man I had helped on a bench was connected to the man who destroyed me emotionally. The man who lied to me, used me, and left me with scars I still carried in silence. I sat back in my chair and felt something shift. An unease sharpening into dread. What were the odds? What were the chances? Why him? Why now? Unless this wasn't fate. Unless it was a setup. Unless someone had placed Liam Calloway on that bench. Unless someone wanted me involved. That night, as I lay in bed running theories through my mind, my phone buzzed again. A second message from the unknown number. He isn't finished with you. And then, moments later, another knock at my door. But when I checked the peephole, no one was there. Just a single object on the floor, a black business card, embossed in silver, with Liam's name on it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Images replayed in my head, the frozen bench, the boots, the envelope, the notebook, the warning texts, the business card. None of it made sense. Unless Liam had known me before the bench. Before the boots. Before our first meeting. The more I tried to untangle it, the more tangled it became. My life had always moved quietly, predictably, but quiet doesn't mean safe. Sometimes it means you're being watched. By morning, I made a decision not out of courage, but out of necessity. If Liam was going to keep appearing in my life, then I needed answers. And I wasn't going to let fear dictate the narrative. I sent him a message. To the number on his business card. Meet me. Tomorrow. Noon. Public place. Simple. Controlled. Neutral. He responded instantly. I've been waiting for you to ask. That sentence lodged itself in my chest. Waited. For me. This wasn't random. This wasn't a chance encounter. This wasn't fate. Something larger, colder, darker was unfolding around me. And I was already inside it. The next day, when I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, Liam was already there. Not alone. And sitting across from him, looking straight at me with a smirk of recognition, was the last person I expected. My ex. Julian. Some people haunt you long before you see them again. Their presence lingers in your memory like smoke. Thin, toxic, impossible to disperse. Julian was like that. So when I walked into the cafe and saw him sitting across from Liam, leaning back casually as if he hadn't shattered me a year earlier, my pulse didn't just quicken. It collapsed. For a second, I forgot to breathe. Julian looked the same. Black hair pushed back. Button-up shirt too crisp. Smile too rehearsed. Confidence dripping off him like cologne. Except, this time his confidence felt practiced. A performance. He glanced at me. Eyebrows lifting with a familiarity I wished I could erase. Amelia, he said in that smooth, arrogant tone he used when he was hiding something. Long time. Liam didn't look at Julian. He looked at me, watching, studying, absorbing my reaction like data points in an equation only he understood. Two men I didn't trust. One I had loved, one I had helped, both sitting together. This wasn't coincidence. This was constructed. I didn't take a seat. I didn't greet them. I kept my distance, one hand on the back of a chair. A barrier, a boundary, a reminder to them both that I wasn't here to perform. Why are you together? I asked. Not soft. Not polite. Just sharp. Julian smirked, swirling his coffee cup with annoying theatrics. Relax, we're just talking business. Liam spoke then, voice calm, level, too even. Julian and I used to work on a project. We have unfinished matters. Unfinished. A word that always precedes trouble. My chest tightened. Julian leaned forward. Funny running into you again like this. Fate, maybe? My jaw clenched. If fate had any hand in this, it was a malicious one. As I watched them interact, something stood out. Julian kept glancing at Liam. Not as a friend. Not as an equal, but as someone trying to gauge a threat. And Liam didn't return a single glance. He didn't acknowledge Julian's presence unless absolutely necessary. Like Julian was a variable he had already solved. This wasn't a reunion. This was a negotiation. or a power play, and I was the piece being moved. I hated that feeling. More than heartbreak. More than betrayal. I hated being used. Julian tapped the table, drawing my attention. "You two know each other," he said. Not a question. A probing accusation. My stomach tightened. Before I could answer, Liam said quietly, "She helped me." Julian's eyebrows shot up. "Oh. She helped you." I didn't understand the look he gave Liam next. A mix of surprise and fear. "Why?" Julian asked Liam, voice low. Liam's expression didn't change. "She didn't have to. She chose to." The way he said it carried weight. Like the choice mattered in ways I didn't yet understand. Julian exhaled, leaning back. "You shouldn't be near her, Liam." My heartbeat faltered. Why shouldn't he? Liam finally looked at him then, and the temperature of the room seemed to drop. "You lost the right to tell me what to do a long time ago." Julian's hand tightened around his mug. This wasn't simple. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a layered history. And I was somehow in the middle of their unfinished war. Julian stood up abruptly. "I warned you," he said to Liam. Then he looked at me. With pity. With guilt. With something that felt like regret. And that terrified me more than his arrogance ever had. "Stay away from him, Amelia," he said. "It's safer." Safer. Before I could question him, he walked out. Just like that. Leaving me with more questions than answers. And leaving me alone with a man who knew far too much about me. Seeing Julian again reopened wounds I thought I'd buried. Not healed. Just shoved deep enough to function. But wounds don't close when they're filled with lies. Julian leaving me had been one thing. But Julian knowing Liam? Julian warning me? It twisted everything inside me. I looked at Liam, searching for honesty in his unreadable expression. He didn't offer any. He didn't apologize. Didn't explain. He simply said, "You deserve to know the connection." Eventually. Eventually. A word spoken by manipulators and liars. A word that means, I waited until the moment benefited me. I turned to leave the cafe, needing space, air, clarity. But Liam grabbed my wrist gently, not forcefully. Yet the touch froze me in place. "Amelia," he whispered, "there are things you don't know yet. And I need you to trust me." My voice came out colder than ice. "I don't trust anyone who hides the truth." His expression flickered, just for a second. Then he said the last thing I expected. "Julian hurt you. But he's not the one who's coming for you next." I left without looking back. My steps were fast, sharp, uneven. My pulse still fractured by heartbreak and anger. My thoughts spiraling. Why had Julian warned me? Why had Liam approached me in the first place? And who was coming for me next? When I reached my apartment building, something made me stop. A shadow near the mailbox. Someone slipping out of sight. Too fast. Too deliberate. I held my breath. Someone had followed me home. Again. The next morning, when I stepped outside, there was an envelope taped to my door. Inside it was a single photograph. Me, standing by the cafe. Beside Liam, with a red circle drawn around my face. And 3 words scribbled beneath it. "You're next, Amelia." I didn't recognize the person I became that night. California winters are nothing like the frozen cities I grew up hearing about, yet somehow that evening felt colder than any ice storm. Maybe because betrayal chills you from the inside out, slow, creeping, impossible to shake. Where the stranger on that frostbitten bench James stopped being a coincidence in my life, and became the epicenter of a truth I wasn't ready for. Because fate doesn't just twist quietly. Sometimes it snaps, loudly. The week after the cafe meeting drifted by in a blur. I kept replaying his voice, that unsettling softness when he spoke about opportunity and uncertainty. I studied every detail from that conversation, turning it around in my mind as if a hidden message lay somewhere between his pauses. He told me he wasn't in California for business. He needed to disappear for a while. He didn't trust many people. But the way he said it felt careful. Chosen. Like each word had been trimmed until it revealed nothing. I tried to shrug it off. People carry secrets. I wasn't entitled to his. Then came the moment everything cracked open. It was a Friday morning, a bright, gold California morning where palm trees sway like they have nothing to mourn. I woke up early, unsettled, something tugged at the edges of my intuition, an itch beneath the skin. I called it the kind of feeling that comes right before a story turns dark. My phone buzzed with a notification. Local business headline. At first, I almost ignored it. But the thumbnail froze me. A blurred photo. A familiar face. A caption that made my lungs collapse. Billionaire investment heir reported missing. Security footage reveals last known locations. My blood ran cold. I clicked it, and there he was. James. Not in rags. Not looking lost or broken. But in expensive clothing, stepping out of a sleek black car, surrounded by bodyguards. It was unmistakable. His full name rolled across the screen like a death sentence to my assumptions. Liam Callaway, as in Callaway Financial Group. As in one of the wealthiest families on the West Coast. The stranger whose boots I gave away. The man who warmed his hands on that frozen metal bench. The soft-spoken drifter who claimed he was running from nothing but life itself. Was a billionaire heir. A vanishing one. And he lied to me. I stared at my phone, my pulse roaring in my ears. What did I stumble into? Who exactly had I helped? And why did he hide the truth from me? I didn't even know the real danger yet. For the first hour, I was numb. By the second, every moment we had replayed itself with a new filter, one that revealed the gaps and shadows I hadn't noticed. The misdirection. The half-smiles. The way he watched people enter the cafe before approaching. The way he never mentioned his last name, or any family at all. He wasn't lost. He wasn't helpless. He wasn't stranded. He was hiding. And I, without knowing, had been pulled into it. I know what most people would feel in that moment. Fear. Confusion. Maybe awe. But me? I felt betrayed. Because trust is a currency I spend carefully. And he had taken mine without earning it. I thought the lie was the betrayal. I was wrong. What came next was worse. Curiosity has always been my ruin. But it's also what saves me. I dug deeper. More articles, more clips, more rumors. And then, buried in a local investigative thread, I found something that didn't show up in the mainstream coverage. A timestamp. A surveillance angle. A frozen frame. Liam. On the same night I met him. Except not on the bench. Not in rags. Not shivering. He was stepping into a discreet building. Exchanging a locked briefcase with someone whose face was hidden. A transaction. A secret one. My heart fell. The cold bench. The broken shoelaces. The lost look. None of it had been real. He staged it. I wasn't the good Samaritan he bumped into. I was a pawn he positioned exactly where he needed me. And I had walked right into the game. I should have walked away. But instead, I followed the threads. And that's when I discovered something that shook everything deeper. Something about me, not him. Late that night, I tore through public records, archived articles, business leaks, anything I could find. One leaked document caught my eye. A redacted report tied to Callaway Financial. Filed months before I met him. Connected to an internal investigation. Something to do with whistleblowers. And buried in the notes was my name. My full name. Linked to a volunteer program. A small nonprofit. One Liam's family had donated to years earlier. I froze. A cold truth wrapped around me. He didn't just meet me by chance. He had known about me. For months. My chest tightened with betrayal so sharp it felt like glass. All that time. I thought the universe put us on that frozen bench. Turns out Liam had placed me there long before fate ever got involved. I sat there, staring at the glowing screen, my heart thundering. Every piece of the story I thought I knew was a lie. And now that I knew the truth, I had a choice. Walk away. Or walk toward the storm. I chose the storm. Because if a billionaire thought he could manipulate me quietly, he hadn't yet learned how dangerous silence can be. There's a quiet kind of fury that doesn't scream, doesn't lash out, doesn't crumble. It breathes. It waits. It sharpens. I didn't want dramatic payback. I didn't want the satisfaction of a confrontation. What I wanted was truth. Real truth. Not the polished, billionaire-approved version. And if Liam Callaway thought I would sit still after discovering he'd mapped out my life without my consent, he didn't know me at all. Because betrayal doesn't weaken me. It organizes me. The morning after uncovering his investigation file, I did something incredibly simple. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't confront him. I went silent. In silence, people reveal themselves. They act, they reach, they slip. And Liam slipped faster than I expected. By noon he had sent 3 messages short, careful, sounding almost nervous. By evening, 5 more. No details, no explanations, only, "Are you okay? I have something I need to tell you. Please don't disappear." Disappear. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't respond. And with every hour I stayed quiet, his calm veneer cracked. Silence was my first strike. It was around 10:42 p.m. when the 7th message came through. One word. "Please." I almost ignored it. But then I noticed something unusual, something Liam never did. He forgot to disable his location tag. My pulse spiked. The map showed him less than 6 miles away, stationary, inside a gated property at the edge of the city. A property belonging to a shell company, funded by Callaway Financial, registered under a management group course, linked to the same investigative reports I found the night before. The coincidence was too perfect. I saved the coordinates. And this time, I wasn't afraid. If he was hiding, if he was lying, if he was planning something, then I was about to find out exactly where his secrets slept. I wasn't foolish enough to march to that address unprepared. So I approached it the way I approached everything now. Quietly, strategically, alone. For 2 days, I researched the property, tracing shell companies, managers, legal loopholes. The same patterns kept surfacing. Encrypted financial routes, anonymous donors, undocumented transfers, offshore accounts, and every thread circled back to one phrase in the investigation files: asset diversion. The kind of phrase that could bury a dynasty or the woman who stumbled into it. The nonprofit where my name appeared? It wasn't just a charitable outreach program. It was a funnel, a legal smokescreen. The donations weren't donations. They were transfers, money laundering disguised as philanthropy. My stomach tightened as the realization settled. Liam didn't meet me by accident. He needed someone clean, someone small, someone he could move through the system without scrutiny. Someone like me. He didn't choose me because he liked me. He chose me because I was useful. That was the moment my anger solidified into something colder. Purpose. By the 3rd day, I found something different, something that didn't match any of the others. A storage facility record. Small, unassuming, low security, but paid for monthly by the same shell account tied to Liam's disappearance. And the payment was due. That night. I didn't think. I drove. The place was dim, with flickering overhead bulbs humming like insects. My footsteps echoed. Each row of storage units felt like a corridor of secrets waiting to exhale. The number on the record. Unit 19C. I approached it with my heart straining against my ribs. Inside. I didn't find cash. Or documents. Or hidden tech. I found a lockbox. Black. Sleek. Unmarked. I froze. Because the lockbox had my name on a tag. My full name. Written in his handwriting. He prepared this. Long before he ever sat on that bench. The lid felt cold, almost metallic with dread. And when I opened it, I found something that changed the direction of my revenge forever. Inside the lockbox were 3 items. A flash drive labeled "For Amelia if something happens to me." A folded photo of Liam with someone I didn't recognize. The person's face was crossed out with red marker. A handwritten note. Short. Barely legible, shaking pen strokes. It read, "They're watching me. If they use you, walk away. If I use you, I'm sorry." My vision blurred with shock. He wasn't manipulating me for greed. He was protecting me from something he couldn't risk naming. But that's the problem with half-truths. They twist into full betrayals. I didn't go home right away. I parked beneath a street lamp in an empty lot and plugged the flash drive into my laptop. There were only 2 files. A video, and a folder named Evidence. I clicked the video first. Liam appeared on the screen. Not polished, not confident. Sweating, glancing over his shoulder. Terrified. I'd never seen him afraid before. He began speaking, but the audio was faint, jittery, fighting static. What I did catch chilled me to the bone. "If they find this, I'm gone. Amelia doesn't know. They used her name in the files. I didn't want her involved. If she sees this, tell her it wasn't supposed to touch her. Not her." Then the screen cut out. My breath left me in shards. He wasn't the villain. He was running from bigger ones. And because of him, I was now on their radar. I sat in the quiet darkness for a long time, my pulse flickering like a weak flame. Liam wasn't innocent. But he wasn't my enemy. Not the real one. The ones pulling the strings, the ones crossing out faces. Laundering money through charities, targeting whistleblowers, they were the reason he hid on that frozen bench. And they were the reason my own name appeared in their files. Revenge no longer meant punishing Liam. It meant dismantling the people who built the game he dragged me into. Quietly. Methodically. On my own terms. And I knew exactly where to begin. Revenge doesn't begin with fire. It begins with observation. With patience so sharp it feels like a blade resting on your tongue. And that night, after watching Liam's trembling confession flicker across my laptop screen, I made my first real decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to let fear guide me. I would move. Quietly. Deliberately. And I would start targeting the shadows he was scared to name. It was time for my first tactical strike. I opened the second file on the flash drive. The evidence. Inside were subfolders, each named with unsettling simplicity. Transfers. Shell routes. Internal ledgers. Whistleblower notes. Black line accounts. All encrypted. But not beyond my reach. People often underestimate those who've lived quietly. But quiet people learn to see things others overlook. And I'd learned early in life how to tear apart systems that believed themselves untouchable. It took hours. But by 3:17 a.m., I cracked the first layer. What spilled out wasn't numbers. It was patterns. Transfers disguised as charity. Money moved offshore, then back through environmental grants. Technical jargon meant to confuse regulators. The Harridan dynasty wasn't laundering money around the law. They were laundering money through the law. And someone inside the empire had tried to expose it. The crossed-out face in the photo suddenly made sense. If Liam wasn't the whistleblower, then who was? And why was their face crossed out? The answer was waiting in the ledger. I scrolled through file after file, absorbing numbers and names, and then one tiny, almost hidden detail surfaced. At the bottom of a document titled Blackline Account 7, someone had left a comment. A signature, not a full name, just initials. AR. I froze. Because those weren't Liam's initials. And they weren't mine. This was someone else. Someone who tried to expose the dynasty's corruption. Someone the Callaways had silenced. Someone whose identity Liam was protecting. Someone I needed to find. I knew better than to confront a billion-dollar empire directly. Powerful people don't crush you in public, they erase you quietly. So I made a plan built on invisibility. Find the whistleblower. Verify the evidence. Expose the real criminals without ever revealing myself. But before I could move forward, I needed real access to Callaway Financial, not through Liam, through the people who never thought I mattered enough to notice. And there was one way in, their philanthropic division. The one they used to launder millions. The same nonprofit where my name appeared in their files. That's where my quiet infiltration would begin. The building sat in downtown Los Angeles, glass and steel gleaming in the morning sun. From the outside, it radiated sincerity banners about charity, clean oceans, and youth education. But behind those transparent walls hid numbers that could topple empires. I walked in like I belonged. Confidence is a disguise that fits anyone willing to wear it. The receptionist greeted me with a bright, unassuming smile. I observed everything. Cameras angled down hallways. Badges clipped to belts. Who held keycards? What floors required clearance? Who avoided eye contact? Who watched too closely? People reveal secrets without speaking. All you have to do is listen with your eyes. I introduced myself as a volunteer returning to update my documentation. A harmless request. A logical one. One that gave me access to their system for just long enough. She handed me a digital form on a tablet. Perfect. Every form connects to a backend. Every backend holds a doorway. And with the smallest exploit crafted the night before, I slipped into their network through the tablet submission portal. Not to steal. Not to destroy. Just to observe. To take inventory of their vulnerabilities. Their cracks. Their blind spots. And I found one immediately. A private meeting scheduled for later that afternoon. AR review session. My stomach tightened. The initials. R. The whistleblower. Still alive. Still connected to the organization. Still dangerous to the people hunting them. And booked for a meeting in less than 5 hours. If A.R. was walking into a meeting. They were walking into a trap. Because the names listed under attending were the same names embedded in the laundering files. This wasn't a review. It was a setup. And if I didn't intercept it, A.R. wouldn't walk out. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't need one. Information was enough. Through the nonprofit system, I traced the calendar entry back to an email chain, then to internal memos. With each click, the truth unfolded deeper and darker. A.R. had submitted evidence. A.R. had asked for protection. A.R. had begged for confidentiality. And the board granted them a private meeting. A meeting designed to eliminate them quietly. I had two choices. Warn A.R. Show up instead of them. I chose the more dangerous option. Because anyone can warn. But confronting danger silently, that's where power changes hands. I arrived early, too early for the board members to suspect anything. I stood outside the frosted glass conference room, my reflection a ghost in the polished surface. When the door opened, the room was empty. Good. I slipped inside and positioned myself at the end of the table where A.R. should have sat. 10 minutes later, footsteps echoed in the hallway, low voices, sharp, male, cold. 3 figures entered, executives, power-hungry, calculating. They froze when they saw me. I didn't speak. I didn't smile. I didn't explain. I simply placed the flash drive on the table. Their eyes widened. I had their attention. I'm not A.R., I finally said. And this meeting is over. Silence thickened, sharp as broken glass. I stood, took the flash drive, walked out. Not quickly, not fearfully, with purpose. Because that room wasn't my battlefield. Not yet. My battlefield was waiting outside. In the aftermath of the fear I'd just planted in them. If you're still with me, thank you. Tell me in the comments, would you have walked into that room? And make sure you're subscribed. As I exited the building, my pulse slowed. My hands steadied. My mind sharpened. I'd revealed myself to them intentionally. Not as a threat. Not as a victim. As something worse, a variable they couldn't predict. A ghost they couldn't trace. A mistake they didn't realize they'd made. I wasn't just inside their system. I was inside their fear. And I was just getting started. But the moment I stepped into that meeting room, the moment I placed the flash drive on the table, the moment I walked out without explaining a single thing, that was the moment they realized they weren't hunting Liam anymore. They were hunting me. And that was exactly what I wanted. This was where I stopped being prey and started becoming the threat they never saw coming. It happened the next morning. I was sitting outside a downtown cafe, pretending to scroll through my phone while reviewing the nonprofit's metadata on my laptop. I looked up briefly and saw him, a man, too still, too focused, holding a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. He wasn't watching the street. He was watching me. And when our eyes met, he didn't look away. People who accidentally stare always look away. People sent to watch you don't. It took everything in me not to react. Not to show fear. Not to break the rhythm of my breathing. I closed my laptop casually, stood up, and walked past him. He didn't follow. Not visibly. That was how I knew I'd already passed his test. I wasn't being tailed. I was being evaluated. And that meant one thing. The board had convened after my little appearance. And now they were deciding what category I fell into. Enemy, threat, useful asset, loose end. I had to decide which role I wanted them to believe. Was I going to play the disposable innocent? Or the informed insider? Or something far more dangerous? Something they didn't know how to classify? I made my choice before the afternoon sun hit the sidewalk. When I returned home, the air felt wrong. Not disturbed. Not chaotic. Just off. Like someone had exhaled in the room moments before I opened the door. I scanned every detail. My shoes slightly shifted. The book on the coffee table turned a few degrees. A faint scent cologne. Not mine. My desk drawer closed too smoothly. Someone had been inside. Someone professional. Someone careful. Someone who wanted me to know just enough. They didn't take anything. They didn't leave anything obvious. But when I opened my laptop, the cursor moved half a second slower than normal. A simple sign. Barely noticeable. But unmistakable. They planted monitoring software. A watcher behind the glass. I handed them my fear. Wrapped. Presented. visible. Because fear makes people sloppy. Instead, I did something unexpected. I let them watch. Every click. Every search. Every email I typed but never sent. I let them think they were seeing my every move. But behind that monitored laptop, I had a second one, air-gapped, invisible. While they watched the decoy, I worked in the shadows. The next morning, an email appeared in my inbox. Sent from the nonprofit, subject line, urgent follow-up required. Inside, a polite request. We noticed an issue with your volunteer documentation and need you to return to the office for a clarification meeting. A trap. Thinly disguised. Sloppy, even. But traps reveal the hand that built them. And I wanted to see who would be waiting. So I replied with a single sentence, of course. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Then I spent the night crafting my countermove. By accepting their trap, I was setting one of my own. Because tomorrow, I wasn't coming alone. I was bringing something they couldn't anticipate. Information they didn't know I had. And a truth they couldn't afford to have whispered. Before stepping into their building, I needed to know who A.R. really was. So I traced the initials backward, through encrypted emails, through anonymous donation receipts, through whistleblower protection requests, through redacted HR memos, through archived video logs with blurred faces. Each file gave me more of a silhouette, a woman, mid to late 30s, worked in internal auditing, transferred departments twice, requested confidentiality repeatedly, went on medical leave 3 months ago, never returned. And then I found it. A name hidden in a corrupted metadata tag. Aria Roland. My heart punched against my ribs. She wasn't just an auditor. She was a Laue Financial's internal controls expert. And she had vanished the exact week Liam went into hiding. Now I understood why her face was crossed out in the photo. She hadn't been silenced yet, but she'd come close enough to scare them. And close enough for Liam to risk everything to protect her. Including me. Aria wasn't dead. She was hiding. And if she was hiding, then she knew where the bodies were buried. Figuratively, I hoped. But she was also running from the same people now testing me. I wasn't just planning revenge anymore. I was planning an alliance. One they didn't know existed yet. I drafted an encrypted message using a protocol Liam had embedded inside the flash drive, something only she and he would recognize. Your initials weren't hidden well. They're coming for you again. We need to talk. Midnight. Pier 7. Come alone. I hit send, then sat back, waiting, breathing, listening to the hum of surveillance in the silence of my apartment. And for the next 2 hours there was nothing. Until 2:14 a.m. A reply. One word. Understood. My chest tightened, not in fear. In certainty. This was my ally. My link. My key to the Empire's collapse. At 11:56 p.m., I walked onto Pier 7. The ocean smelled like cold metal and night. Aria arrived 4 minutes later. Hooded. Exhausted. Eyes hollow with sleepless terror. She didn't speak. She just looked at me. And I understood everything James hadn't been able to say aloud. She wasn't running from them. She was running because of something she'd done. Something irreversible. She whispered. Did Liam make it out? My breath faltered. He tried, I said. Now they're shifting their focus. Her jaw clenched. They think you're me, she whispered. Silence, sharp, heavy. That was why they entered my home. Why they tested me. Why they watched me. They didn't know who A.R. was. So they assumed it might be me. I wasn't just bait. I was a decoy. And Aria's next words nearly broke open the entire story. Amelia, you don't understand. Liam didn't just protect me. He didn't just hide from them. He stole something from them. Something they'll burn the world to get back. The moment when all the pieces I'd been collecting finally snapped into place, and revealed a picture I wasn't prepared for. Even now, when I replay it, I can't tell if I feel vindicated, or betrayed by my own certainty. But I remember the exact moment my pulse changed, the exact breath I lost, and how the truth hit me not like a scream but like a whisper. I kept my movements quiet, my questions quieter. California was warming into early spring, but I still felt winter behind me, the frozen bench, the stranger with cold hands, the boots I'd given without thinking. I felt like that version of me was watching everything from a distance, waiting to see who I would become. By now, I had been circling the edges of Liam's world long enough to map the shadows. He moved strangely for a man who pretended not to know me. Too careful, too observant, too familiar. But suspicion wasn't proof. And revenge required proof. Cold, solid, undeniable truth, something I could cut with quietly. So I dug deeper. I followed him through silence instead of footsteps, through patterns instead of questions. That's when I began noticing the same black SUV trailing the same streets whenever I walked home. The same driver glancing at me through the mirror. The same timing 11 minutes behind my last location ping. At first, I assumed Liam was watching me. He had wealth, he had reach, he had secrets. But the closer I got to him, the more I saw someone else's fingerprints instead. It happened on a Thursday. The kind of day when the sun looks warm but the wind still bites. I was walking through the old district, where street lamps flickered like tired guardians. Liam had disappeared from sight for 2 days, something he didn't normally do. Not anymore. I moved through the streets slowly, my mind replaying every encounter with him. The way he had stepped between me and the drunk guy on the sidewalk without hesitation. The precision in his eyes whenever danger appeared. The way he always seemed to know when I was about to turn around. And strangest of all, the way he looked at my boots that first day. Like he'd seen that pair before. Like he knew exactly who had worn them. Why? Why did a billionaire study my boots like he recognized them? I kept walking. Jaw tight, thoughts looping. Until I heard it. A soft click. Too soft for a car door. Too delicate for shoes on concrete. But unmistakably intentional. I wasn't alone. I slowed my steps. Just slightly, not enough to reveal suspicion. Just enough to listen. There it was again. Click. Pause. Click. Someone matching my pace. Someone trained. I reached the crosswalk, pretending to check my phone. In the reflection of the screen, I finally saw him. A man in a gray coat. Wide shoulders. Steady eyes. He wasn't with Liam. I knew that instantly. His posture wasn't protective, it was predatory. And right as I lifted my foot to cross the street, he stepped off the curb. Matching me. Precisely. That was when I felt it. Danger not imagined, but absolute. I crossed the street. He crossed seconds later. I turned left. He turned left. I slipped into the shadows between 2 closed shops. He stopped outside the alley. Just standing there, waiting. Not for me, but for something else. And then, a low hum echoed from behind me. A car pulling up. I froze. This was it. The moment danger became real. The moment I either bolted or watched. My instinct said run. My mind said observe. So I pressed myself deeper into the shadows and watched as the car door opened. And Liam stepped out. But he wasn't alone. Another man climbed out from the opposite side, holding a briefcase and wearing an expression that could cut glass. The stranger in the gray coat straightened. The air changed. Like 2 storms meeting in silence, the man with the briefcase spoke first. Short sentences. Urgent. Insistent. Liam shook his head. Gray coat moved slightly closer, still careful but not afraid. Their stances weren't casual. They were negotiating something dangerous. Something illegal. Something neither of them wanted overheard. My pulse hammered. Liam wasn't being followed. Liam was meeting them. Willingly. The billionaire who refused to acknowledge me. The man I thought I might need to take down. Was in the middle of something far darker than I had anticipated. I strained to listen. Only fragments reached me. She doesn't know. You promised you'd let it go. Not until we find it. Find what? Why was I mentioned? And then, Gray Coat said something that made my stomach twist sideways. She's already part of it. Liam's reply was quiet but sharp enough to cut through the air. She saved me once. That makes her untouchable. The ground beneath me stopped existing. Saved him? When? How? I had never saved a billionaire. I had never met a billionaire officially until the day I saw him half frozen on that bench. Wait. My breath caught. The bench, his shaking hands, the way he had looked at me like he recognized my boots. No. That couldn't. But it did. Right then, everything crashed into place with brutal, painful clarity. Liam wasn't a stranger. He wasn't someone I had encountered by chance. He was the man from the frozen bench. The one I gave my boots to. The one whose face I never saw beneath that frostbitten scarf. The one who vanished the next morning like a ghost. I felt the alley spin. He knew me. From the beginning. And worse, he was protecting me. From what? From whom? I stepped back without meaning to. My shoe scraped against concrete. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Gray coat's head snapped toward the alley. Liam turned sharply. Eyes narrowing. Scanning. Searching, for me. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Didn't dare move as both men stepped forward. 1 step. 2 steps. Liam lifted his hand. Stopping Gray coat. His voice dropped low. Not her. Leave her. He said it like a warning. Like a vow. Like something carved into stone years ago. And then, as if sensing me without seeing, he looked directly into the shadows where I stood. Straight at me. My lungs collapsed. He didn't call out. Didn't expose that he saw me. He just held my gaze in that quiet, piercing way he always had. And let me go. He turned away. Walked back to the car. Left with them into the night. Leaving me with more questions than answers. More fear than suspicion. More truth than I knew how to hold. This was no longer a story about a stranger I was investigating. This was a story about a man who had been carrying a secret connection to me since the first snow. A connection I hadn't recognized. A connection he had never spoken aloud. And the moment I stepped out of the alley, a single thought took shape in my mind, quiet, dangerous, and undeniable. If Liam has been protecting me, then I've been planning revenge against the wrong enemy. What exactly did I save Liam from that night on the bench? Why was I untouchable? And who wanted me gone badly enough to send a man in a gray coat? I didn't go home immediately. I walked. And walked. And walked. Block after block, letting the cold California night settle into my skin the same way realization had settled into my bones. Liam wasn't the threat. He wasn't the enemy. He wasn't even the mystery. He was the hinge, the link, the point where 2 timelines, my life and whatever he'd been running from, quietly collided. I had spent weeks suspecting him. Weeks tracking his movements, digging into his silence, and waiting for him to slip. Now I realized I should have been looking in the opposite direction. Somebody else had marked me long before Liam appeared in my orbit. Someone who had no problem following me through alleys, waiting outside my building, or whispering about me in the dark. The man in the gray coat was only the beginning. Which meant I needed a new strategy. Not reactive. Not emotional. But precise. Cold. Calculated. The kind of strategy that doesn't simply defend, but dismantles. I started where any rational person might start. What exactly did I save Liam from on that bench? But rationality wasn't enough. This wasn't a simple question. It was the opening of a vault. My mind rewound to that winter day in Los Angeles, rare, cold, biting wind, frost sliding across the sidewalks like spilled glitter. I remembered the quiet, the heaviness in the air, and the stranger hunched on the bench beneath the eucalyptus trees. His coat had been too thin, his breathing too slow, his hands, purple at the fingertips. I had assumed it was homelessness, exhaustion, a man fallen through the cracks. But now I wondered if someone had put him there. If the cold I found him in wasn't accidental, but intentional. I stopped walking. A realization slid into me like a blade. If someone wanted Liam gone, then someone may want me gone too. And maybe for the same reason, I decided I wouldn't wait to be approached again. I would force the confrontation. Not recklessly. Not loudly. Smartly. Quietly. Like a woman who finally understood the rules of the game she'd been thrown into. I went home, showered until the steam erased my shaking, made tea I didn't drink, and sat at my kitchen table with my notebook, the one I had started when my suspicions about Liam began. Tonight, I created a new page. Gray coat. Below it, I wrote, height, 6'2". Posture. Trained. Moves like surveillance. Not street-level tail. Knows Liam. Knows about me. Works with at least one other man in briefcase. Has an objective I'm not supposed to know. Then I wrote the line that shifted everything for me. I am not prey. I circled it. Twice. And then I made a plan. Liam had been protecting me. That much I knew now. He wasn't trying to avoid me, he was trying to keep me out of something that could swallow me whole. But silence wasn't protection. Not for me. Not anymore. So I went where Liam would least expect to see me. I went to him. His building, one of those quiet luxury towers disguised as minimalist modern living, was guarded by a concierge who looked like he could bench press a Range Rover. He recognized me. Of course he did. I had been in the lobby once before, Weeks ago, delivering a document I pretended was misdelivered mail, just to get a read on their security. "Good evening, Miss Reed," he said, voice steady but eyes alert. I didn't ask how he knew my name. At this point, it didn't matter. "I need to see Liam," I told him, keeping my voice calm. Controlled. Not desperate, strategic. The concierge's jaw tightened. "He's not expecting visitors." "I know," I said. "Tell him Amelia is here." His expression cracked. Just slightly. Enough for me to see it. Recognition. Concern. Conflict. He made the call. I watched him closely, watched the way his fingers moved quickly but not nervously, watched the way his eyes flicked toward me as if checking whether I was a threat. He listened. Nodded once. Then cleared his throat. "You can go up." I didn't move. "Was that him?" I asked softly. Another crack in his expression. "No, but the message was received." That was strange. Very strange. If Liam didn't answer, then who authorized me? And why? My pulse tightened as I stepped onto the elevator. When the doors slid shut, the silence wrapped around me like a warning. Something was waiting upstairs, answers, danger, or both. But I wasn't backing away. Not tonight. When the elevator reached Liam's floor, the hallway was almost too quiet. He lived alone. No neighbors in earshot. Top floor. One unit. The perfect place for secrets. But what stopped me wasn't the silence. It was the door. It was slightly open, not enough to be careless. Not enough to be accidental. But enough to say, "Come in. We've been expecting you." My heartbeat stumbled. I pushed the door gently. It swung open without resistance. The penthouse was dim, lit only by the soft glow from the city skyline bleeding through the massive windows. Los Angeles looked almost unreal from that height, like a glass field of stars. But I wasn't looking at the skyline. I was looking at him. Liam. Standing with his back to me, hands tensed on the kitchen counter, shoulders tight with a weight I couldn't yet name. He didn't turn when I stepped inside. He didn't speak. He just breathed slowly. Deliberately. Like a man preparing for a truth he never wanted to say out loud. "Close the door, Amelia." I did. The click echoed through the room. He finally turned. His eyes, usually composed, unreadable, were fractured with something raw. Fear? Regret? Recognition? I couldn't tell yet. "Why were you meeting with Greycoat?" I asked. No hesitation. No build-up. Just the question that had been burning a hole in me since the alley. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something inside him had hardened. "I warned them to stay away from you," he said quietly. "That was supposed to be the agreement. But tonight I realized I've made a mistake." A cold wave spread through my spine. "What mistake?" He stepped toward me. Slowly. Measured. Controlled. "You shouldn't be involved," he whispered. "You were never supposed to be involved." I held his gaze. "I'm already involved." Silence. Sharp, heavy silence. Then Liam said the words that tipped the entire story off its axis. "They're not after me, Amelia. They're after you." I shook my head. "Why?" "I had nothing to do with any of this." "Yes, you do." His voice cut through mine. Firm. Unarguable. Fatal. "You saved me that night because they left me there. And they saw you do it." He let that sink in before he delivered the final blow. "You weren't a witness. You were an interruption." The room tilted. My lungs locked. Everything I thought I understood about that night froze in place, then cracked slowly, painfully into pieces. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Liam stepped closer. "For months they've been trying to determine how much you know." His voice softened. "And how much I told you. But you didn't tell me anything," I said, barely audible. "That's the only reason you're still alive." The air turned to ice. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Inside, my heart hammered so loudly I thought it might echo. I forced myself to breathe. "Then tell me now," I whispered. "What are they after?" Liam hesitated. It was small, just a flicker, but enough for me to understand that the next words would change everything. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice to a whisper that trembled between fear and inevitability. "They think you left with something that night." "What something?" He exhaled, slow, painful. "A drive." My blood ran cold. "What drive?" "The one I hid in your boot." Time stopped. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't blink. Couldn't move. Liam held my gaze carefully as if touching a wound. "You didn't know," he said softly. I know that now. But they don't. I stepped back, gripping the counter behind me. You hid evidence in my boot. I asked, voice cracking. Yes. And didn't think to tell me? I thought you were safe, he said quietly. I was wrong. I stared at him, everything inside me shifting: fear, anger, disbelief, betrayal, and something else I wasn't ready to name. That's why Grey Coat is following me? I whispered. Yes. They think I still have it. Yes. I swallowed. And do I? Liam hesitated. Then, I don't know. The words hit me like a slap. You don't know? I was half-conscious, freezing, and trying to keep evidence out of the wrong hands, he said, voice rising. Everything about that night was chaos. So I could be walking around with something they'd kill me for. I said slowly. Yes. Or I could have thrown it away without realizing. Yes. And either way, they're going to keep coming. Yes. I let out a shaky laugh, cold, sharp, humorless. Then, I guess we stop waiting. Liam blinked. What? I straightened, inhaling a breath that felt like armor sliding into place. I'm done being hunted, I said. Your mistake made me part of this. Now I'm making myself part of the solution. His expression changed then. Something like fear. Something like respect. Maybe both. Amelia, he said softly, this isn't your fight. It is now. And in that moment, with the city glowing beneath us, and danger closing in from every direction, I crossed an invisible line. I stopped being a bystander in a story I didn't choose. I became a player, a strategist, someone dangerous. Marcus stepped closer, his voice low, steady, unavoidable. Before we move forward, you need to know what's on that drive. I met his eyes. Then tell me. He hesitated. Long enough for dread to settle in my bones. It's not about money, he whispered. It's not about power. It's about identity. Identity. That single word didn't just echo, it detonated. And for a moment, I felt like I had slipped out of my own skin, watching myself from somewhere high above the city. Identity. Why would anyone risk this much for a name? I stared at Liam, waiting for him to unravel the rest of the truth, but he only exhaled slowly, like someone releasing a secret they'd carried too long. It's not my identity they want, he said. His voice was so soft I almost missed the fracture in it. I held my breath. Then whose? He looked at me. Really looked. And everything inside me froze. Yours. I backed up instinctively, my spine hitting the marble counter behind me. That's impossible. But the word felt hollow, like I already knew the truth but didn't want to touch it. Liam stepped closer carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. The drive contains records, he said. Files, dates, transfers. Everything they stole from you before you were even old enough to understand. My identity wasn't stolen. I snapped. I've lived my entire life normally. Nothing is missing. Yes, he said quietly, because someone else lived it in your place. The world tilted under my feet. What are you talking about? He swallowed hard, bracing himself. Amelia. You were never supposed to find me that night on the bench. His voice dropped. And I was never supposed to live. So they left you there to die. I whispered. Yes. His answer landed like ice. And they stole your identity because it was the perfect cover. A clean slate. A child with no immediate family left. And no one to question if the paperwork looked legitimate. Are you telling me someone out there is living as me? Liam nodded once. And they've built an empire using your name. My knees almost buckled. All my life, every achievement, every moment, every decision, I thought I was just ordinary, invisible, forgettable. But the truth was so much darker. Someone had erased me before I could form memories. Someone took my name and left me to live in the margins of their stolen life. Why didn't anyone tell me? Liam's jaw tightened and he looked away. They paid the right people to stay quiet. And killed the ones who didn't. My stomach dropped. You knew. I whispered. He looked back at me, tortured. Yes. And you didn't tell me. No. Why? Because knowing would have made you a target. I let that sink in, a slow, poisonous realization that Liam had kept me in the dark while shadows formed around me. So the moment I gave you my boots, I said, voice trembling. They realized the wrong Amelia was still alive. Liam didn't answer. He didn't have to. I turned away, gripping the cold counter to stop my hands from shaking. I thought this was about money, or secrets, or corporate theft. No, he said softly. This is personal. He paused. For them. And for you. I felt the implication before he said it. They didn't just steal your name, Liam whispered. They stole your inheritance. I spun back to him. What inheritance? He hesitated. Your biological father was a tech architect for the earliest encrypted data systems in the valley. He died under suspicious circumstances 21 years ago. Your mother died months later. My heartbeat stuttered. No. No, this couldn't. There was a company, Liam continued quietly. Not huge at the time. But now? One of the biggest AI infrastructure firms in California. He met my eyes. And its original ownership papers are under your name. Everything inside me went silent. You're telling me I own part of a corporation worth billions? Yes. He didn't soften it. Didn't cushion the blow. He just let the truth fall. But the person who stole your identity claimed it instead. I felt the betrayal like a physical thing. A bruise that spread outward with every breath. A stranger had lived my life. Held my inheritance. Worn my name. And I had worked dead-end jobs. Lost sleep over rent. Struggled for everything unaware that something monumental had been taken from me. It was an explosion. I didn't speak for a long moment. I couldn't. The truth felt too big, too jagged to swallow. Liam stepped closer, but I lifted a hand to stop him. Don't, I said, not angry, not loud, just done. Amelia. No, I whispered. You should have told me months ago. He closed his eyes. You're right. But I didn't know how much you could handle. And I didn't want to drag you into a war. You dragged me in the moment you hid evidence in my boot. That made him flinch. Good. He deserved to. But before either of us could speak again, a sharp buzz broke the silence. Liam's phone. He answered quickly, voice clipped with practiced calm. This is Liam. A pause. Then. What do you mean she's missing? My heart stopped. Who? Who was missing? Liam's eyes widened, fear punching through his carefully constructed facade. When? He demanded. Another pause. I watched his face change from controlled to horrified. Then he turned to me. We need to go, he said. Now. Why? His voice was barely a whisper. They took your mother. I blinked. My mother? My voice cracked. I don't have your adoptive mother, he corrected. They know she's your weakness. They're using her to force you out of hiding. The room spun. My mother. The woman who raised me. Loved me. Built me from the ground up with kindness and sacrifice. They had her. Because of me. Because someone stole my name 2 decades ago. Because Liam hid evidence without telling me. Because I helped a freezing stranger on a bench. Identity stolen. Name replaced. Inheritance taken. Truth hidden. Enemies awakened. My mother kidnapped. All roads led to the same conclusion. I had been passive too long. Too trusting. Too quiet. Too forgiving. Not anymore. I grabbed my coat. My bag, my resolve. We're getting her back, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded stronger. Sharper. Colder. Liam exhaled slowly. There's something else you should know. I didn't want more truth. But I steadied myself. What? He turned fully toward me. There are 2 factions, he said. Both after the drive. One wants to erase you. The other wants to use you. And you? I asked. He held my gaze. I want you to survive this. Even if I don't. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. But I didn't wipe it away. I couldn't afford softness anymore. Then we move, I said. Tonight. Liam nodded. I'll drive. We headed for the elevator, urgency sharp between us. But before we stepped inside, I stopped him. One more thing, I said. He turned. Don't lie to me again. Liam swallowed. Then nodded slowly. I won't. The elevator doors closed. The city lights flickered below. And somewhere out there, my mother was alone, terrified, and waiting. The consequence of the truth wasn't just danger. It was war. The streets were nearly empty when we arrived at the warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place that smelled of rust and forgotten deals. The kind of place that seemed to hold its own heartbeat slow, cold, deliberate. I stepped out of the car, letting Marcus lead the way. I didn't need directions. I had already mapped every step in my mind during the drive, every shadow, every corner, every potential threat. Tonight wasn't about hiding. It wasn't about watching from the sidelines. Tonight, I was the storm. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and old wood. Dim overhead lights cast long shadows on the crates stacked around the room. And then I saw him. The man behind it all. Not Greycoat. Not the briefcase man. The mastermind. He looked exactly like someone who had never feared consequences. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, confidence that didn't waver even in the flickering light. And for the first time, I looked him in the eye. "You're late," he said, voice smooth, almost lazy, like he expected me to be intimidated. I didn't flinch. Not a muscle. Not a glance. "I'm here," I replied softly. "Because you underestimated me." He laughed. Soft, condescending. A laugh designed to make you shrink in your own skin. "Underestimated," he said. "You? You've been running in circles while we've been doing business. You've had no idea what you were stepping into. Then why did you come?" I asked. "My mother is your leverage. And I'm here to make sure you regret it." His expression shifted, ever so slightly. The first crack in his facade, a flicker of unease. He stepped closer, circling me like a predator testing prey. "You have spirit," he said, "but spirit won't protect you. Not from what I've built. Not from the consequences of your father's legacy." I let him speak. Every word he uttered was a weapon. But I didn't flinch. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, I observed. The way his eyes darted to the crates behind him. The subtle tension in his jaw. The faint scar along his left hand. Every detail was a thread I could pull. And I was ready. I took a step forward. "Everything you've built," I said quietly, almost hypnotically. "Every scheme, every lie, every person you thought you could control, is about to unravel." He smirked. "You think words will stop me?" I shook my head. "I don't need words. I have everything you forgot to consider. Timing, intelligence, and patience." I paused, letting the weight of my presence settle in the room. "You underestimated me because you thought I was helpless. Because you assumed the girl who gave a stranger her boots was naive. I'm not." The smirk faded, just slightly. Enough to notice. Then I moved closer to a crate. Slowly, deliberately, a shadow among shadows. And I pulled the drive from my bag, the one Liam had revealed. The one containing my stolen identity, every ledger, every transfer, every hidden account. He froze. Not visibly, not dramatically. But I saw the tension in his shoulders, the flicker in his eyes. "I have what you took from me," I said softly. "Everything you thought was safe. Isn't." I saw him swallow. The first real crack in his armor. "You're bluffing," he said, voice tight. I smiled faintly. Calm, controlled. No bluff. Just precision. I let the silence stretch. It wasn't empty. It was full of consequence. Full of the truth he had ignored for decades. "I know your men are watching," I whispered. "And I know you've counted on them to protect you. But tonight, they're invisible. And your empire isn't what you think." He shifted, finally acknowledging that his control was slipping. Every subtle gesture, hand tightening, lip twitching, glance to the exit spoke volumes. I stepped even closer. And the tension in the room became unbearable. A predator and a predator, but this time, I had the advantage. "You took everything from me," I said, voice steady. "My name. My life. My inheritance. And my family." His smirk faltered. "Your family?" He echoed, uncertainty creeping in. "Yes. My mother. She's your leverage. And tonight that leverage ends." I paused. I let the words hit him fully. The pause stretched, heavy, charged. Then I added softly with a deadly calm, "I am Amelia. And you are finished." For the first time, he realized that the carefully orchestrated empire of manipulation, control, and intimidation he had built had a blind spot. A human element he never predicted. Me. In that moment, everything he had set in motion, the kidnappings, the surveillance, the stolen identity, began to collapse in his mind. The dominoes he'd stacked for decades started falling. Marcus's interventions, Arya's insider knowledge, my patience and timing, the drive with undeniable proof. All converging here, in this warehouse under these flickering lights, and I watched him unravel. Not violently, not theatrically, but quietly, internally, psychologically. The way true defeat begins. He opened his mouth. I waited. The sound he finally made wasn't a threat. It was the first word of surrender. And yet, he still had one card left. The question was whether I was ready for it. His mouth opened like he was about to apologize. But men like him don't apologize. Not unless something has snapped loose inside them. Not unless they see a future where they aren't holding the knife but lying under it. He drew in a shaky breath. I never wanted to involve you, he murmured. That one sentence chilled the room. Because it was wrong. It didn't match his personality, his crimes, his arrogance. It sounded like someone who suddenly feared something bigger than both of us. My focus sharpened. Then who did? I asked. The question hit him harder than I expected. His face tightened. Not defensively. Not manipulatively. Fear. Real fear. The kind of fear that makes a man look over his shoulder even when there's no one there. He stepped back. Once, twice. His polished confidence was cracking with every retreat. You don't understand, he whispered. This isn't about you. It was never about you. My pulse slowed not from calm but precision. I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was studying him. Then explain, I said. He hesitated. Not because he didn't want to, but because he wasn't sure he could without triggering something worse. When he finally spoke, the truth hit like a blade drawn too fast. Your father didn't steal from us. He exhaled sharply. He was protecting you from the person who truly wants this. Silence. Heavy. Charged. But you killed him, I said quietly. You destroyed his life. You chased us. You kidnapped my mother. He shook his head. No. We were told to. The world didn't spin. It didn't break. It just tilted slowly, dangerously. Who told you? I asked. His jaw clenched. He didn't want to say it. Even now, even defeated, he feared the name more than he feared me. I can't. I stepped closer, voice cold and quiet. You will. He looked at the floor. At the walls. Anywhere except my eyes. A grown man terrified of answering a question. Finally, he spoke with a trembling honesty that felt out of place on his tongue. She's closer than you think. She? I repeated. His silence confirmed it. A woman. Someone powerful enough to command him. Someone he believed could destroy him. A woman close enough to me to know my movements. My weaknesses. My past. My breath steadied as one truth began forming a truth I didn't want but couldn't deny. Give me her name, I demanded. He looked up slowly, eyes full of dread. If I say it aloud, you won't survive the week. And if you don't, I replied, you won't survive the night. That made him break. His voice cracked. Amelia, she's been using you from the moment you were born. His voice lowered to barely a whisper. Your aunt, Elena. The room froze. My heartbeat didn't quicken. It stopped. Suspended in air. Like the universe had taken a breath and forgotten to let it go. Elena. My aunt who raised me when my father disappeared. My aunt who comforted my mother. My aunt who knew every detail of my life. The one person who had always been too helpful. Too informed. Too present. She wanted the inheritance, he continued. She wanted the authority your father stole from her. She orchestrated everything. Your father refused to hand you over to her. That's why he ran. That's why he died. Everything inside me locked into perfect stillness. Not grief. Not disbelief. Not rage. Calculation. My aunt. The woman who tucked me in at night. The woman who smiled through my tears. She was the architect. The puppeteer. The creator of this entire nightmare. I didn't tremble. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I lowered my voice to a deadly calm. You're going to take me to her. He blinked. I can't. You can, I said, stepping even closer. Because right now, I'm the only chance you have of staying alive long enough to be useful. Even if you face her, you won't be prepared. I leaned in until my breath brushed his ear. I've been preparing my whole life. I just didn't know who the enemy was. He closed his eyes. Not in surrender. In resignation. He knew this was the point of no return for both of us. I'll take you to her, he whispered. But understand this. He reopened his eyes. And in them I saw a truth he had been hiding since the moment I walked into the warehouse. She never planned to let you live long enough to ask these questions. He stepped back. And if she knows you're coming. His breath hitched. There will be no second chance. The warehouse lights flickered. Somewhere outside, tires crunched gravel, someone arriving. He froze. Liam tensed. I turned toward the exit. Whoever had pulled the strings of my life, the real threat, the final enemy, she knew. And she was coming. The headlights cut across the warehouse wall like two white knives. Liam stiffened. My pulse didn't rise, but everything inside me tightened with intent. She's early, Liam whispered. Early? That meant she already knew. Of course she did. People like her never wait to be confronted. They appear first so they can ask, "Why are you here?" Instead of answering it themselves, the car door slammed. Her heels approached the warehouse. Sharp, clean, expensive. Not the sound of someone entering a dangerous place. The sound of someone who owned it. The metal door creaked open. A silhouette emerged, the same tall, crisp figure who used to braid my hair before school, who handed me hot chocolate when my mother was drowning in grief. Aunt Elena. Her voice came smooth and amused. Well, this is a surprise. She walked toward us with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Liam, you look injured. Did you fall? The words carried the softness of an aunt. The tone carried the threat of a commander. Liam didn't speak. He was frozen, caught between two predators. Elena turned to me. And there it was. Not love. Not relief. Not concern. Recognition. Not of the girl she raised. Of the woman who had finally become a problem. Amelia, she said, you should have stayed out of this. My voice came out steady, colder than the warehouse air. You murdered my father. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She tilted her head, studying me like an artist examining her own painting. You have no idea what your father did, she replied softly. And that's when I saw it. The real her. The one who had been hiding behind birthday cards, comfort, and patience. Not a guardian. A strategist. A puppeteer. A woman who believed her intentions justified the casualties. I stepped closer. Liam inhaled sharply as though I were approaching a cliff's edge. Then tell me, I said. Tell me why you destroyed him. Why you hunted us. Why you kept me close all these years. Her lips curled the way they used to when I disappointed her by dropping a glass or misplacing a book. Because you're an heir, Amelia. And heirs must be managed. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't twist. Everything inside me crystallized. She continued, circling me like a quiet, elegant storm. Your father was reckless. Emotional. He refused to give up control of the family estate, the private accounts, the shares your grandparents left under your name. She paused behind me, voice brushing my ear. He refused to let me protect what was rightfully ours. I didn't turn. I didn't move. So you killed him, I said again, colder. She sighed, a patient, almost bored sound. When negotiation fails, Amelia, people make unfortunate choices. She stepped in front of me, hands clasped behind her back. You were always the smartest, she said. It's why your father trusted only you. She lifted her hand and tapped the side of my head, gentle, but poisonous. He didn't hide the passwords from me. He hid them in you. Liam inhaled sharply. Everything aligned, the years of strange conversations with my father, the cryptic stories, the seemingly random advice. He left the information inside me. Memories, numbers, phrases that only now made sense. Elena smiled. And that is why I raised you myself after he ran. I needed time for you to trust me. For you to open all the little locks he placed in your mind. She leaned in. But you grew up too fast. You stopped trusting me. And I realized. You wouldn't cooperate. My voice didn't shake. It sharpened. So you tried to destroy everything around me instead. I had to control you. She said simply. Or eliminate you. Liam tried to speak. I warned you she wouldn't. Elena shot him a look that shut him up instantly. Then she turned back to me. So here we are, she said. You know what I want. You know I can't let you walk away. And now? Her voice softened to a devastating, icy calm. You must choose. She lifted her hand and held it out like she was offering me a chance to be rescued. Give me the access your father left you. Come home. Let me finish what he started. Her eyes shimmered with something too complex to name: envy, desperation, greed, twisted affection. And if I refuse? I asked. She smiled. Then I'll end this the way I ended his story. I didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Didn't look away. Then, Quietly, so quietly, Marcus flinched. I already ended your story 10 minutes ago. She frowned. Amelia, don't mimic dramatics. This is not a script. No, I whispered, it's evidence. Her head jerked slightly. What? I nodded toward the corner of the warehouse, where the small red blinking light finally caught her eye. The recorder. The one Liam didn't know I planted the moment I arrived. Her pupils narrowed. All your confessions, I said. On tape. Your orders. Your admissions. Your threats. Everything. Her mouth tightened, anger, panic, disbelief. You think that matters? She snapped. You think anyone will touch me? I own half of this coast. Maybe, I replied calmly. But you don't own the person waiting for that recording. She froze. For the first time, she felt the trap. Who? She demanded. My father had allies you never accounted for, I said softly. People outside your world, people who have been waiting for this. She stepped toward me, slow, furious, unraveling. You little, but Liam moved between us. Not loyally, not protectively, survivally. He saw the shift. He felt it. He knew the hierarchy had collapsed. Don't, he said quietly to her. Her shock was instant. You betray me? He swallowed. You broke the rules, Elena. You let feelings replace strategy. You underestimated her. Her face went white with rage. You were mine. Not anymore, he said. And that was it. Her empire cracked. Not with explosions or gunfire. With a single sentence from a man she thought she controlled. She looked at me, the panic finally surfacing. You don't understand what you've done. I understand perfectly, I said. You've declared war on blood, she said. You've chosen outsiders over your own family. I didn't choose anything, I replied. You chose for me the minute you killed my father. Her breathing turned ragged, ugly. Uncontrolled, nothing like the polished, poised woman who walked in. You won't win, she hissed. You don't have the strength. I stepped closer until we were almost touching. You mistook quiet for weakness. And that was your final mistake. Outside, sirens began building, distant but coming fast. Her eyes widened. You called them? No, I said. They were always watching. Her legs wobbled. Her lips trembled. The mastermind, breaking apart. Amelia. Her voice cracked for the first time. Don't do this. You need me. No, I said. I never did. She lunged for the exit, but Liam blocked her. She sputtered, panicked, betrayed by the man she commanded for years. Move. He didn't. The sirens grew louder. She looked at me one last time, hatred, fear, disbelief all tangled. This isn't over, she whispered. But the truth was already carved between us. It was. As the police lights washed through the broken windows, Elena finally understood. I didn't defeat her through force. I defeated her through the same tools she once used on me. Patience, silence, observation, calculation. The warehouse doors burst open. Elena screamed my name once, rage, terror, something unstable. Liam raised his hands slowly. And I stepped back into the shadows as they surrounded her. The puppet master, the architect, the woman who shaped my nightmares. Now caged. Now powerless. Now mine to walk away from. I used to think justice arrived like thunder, loud, explosive, impossible to miss. But the real kind, the kind you fight for with your whole spine and soul, arrives quietly. Like the first morning after a storm, when the world looks the same, but the air feels different, cleaner, sharper. Yours again. When Elena was taken away, she wasn't screaming anymore. She wasn't threatening or manipulating. She wasn't pretending to care. She was quiet. Quiet in the same way I had once been. But her silence meant defeat. Mine meant evolution. I watched the police cars disappear down the road, red and blue fading into black, and for the first time in my life, I inhaled without fear. It felt like reclaiming oxygen. I didn't go home immediately. Home wasn't a place I was ready to step back into. Not yet. I walked. Through the early California dawn, the cool air brushing my skin like a reset. Every footstep softened something inside me, loosening the old knots, the buried tension, the memories I finally understood. My father wasn't reckless. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't running from shadows. He was running from her. He spent years protecting me from the person sitting at our dinner table. And he trusted me, a child, to someday understand the clues he slipped into our smallest conversations. I thought of him as I walked down the pier. The waves crashed below, steady and familiar. He didn't live long enough to see this moment, but his choices shaped it. And maybe that was enough. In the past months, I transformed, not into someone harder, not someone vengeful, not someone broken, into someone precise. Someone who knows that control isn't loud. It isn't chaotic. It isn't destructive. Control is the quiet confidence of knowing you acted at the right moment. That you didn't waste bullets on ghosts or fire on illusions. It's the way your heartbeat stays steady even when the world tries to pull you under. It's the way your voice stays soft even when others shout. I used to think silence was weakness. Now I know silence is strategy. Before rebuilding, I needed closure. Real closure, not the dramatic kind where someone falls to their knees and begs forgiveness. But the kind where you stand in a place that hurt you, and feel nothing. I visited my father's grave. It wasn't grand. It wasn't marked with wealth or power. Just a simple stone with his name and 2 dates. I touched the top of it softly, feeling the coolness seep into my palm. I understand now, I whispered. The wind moved the grass around me, subtle, gentle, almost like an acknowledgement. He tried to save me. He died trying to keep me out of Elena's hands. And he did. Because she never stole what mattered most. She never stole me. Revenge stories usually end with a dramatic monologue or a final takedown. My ending wasn't like that. My victory was simple. I didn't become Elena. I didn't absorb her cruelty, her hunger for control, her desperation to dominate. I didn't let her define my ending. Instead, I learned from her what not to be. My power wasn't built on fear or manipulation. It was built on clarity. I walked away from her destruction intact, not because I was stronger, but because I was consistent. Because I was patient. Because I didn't break the way she expected. She underestimated quiet people. She misunderstood soft tones for fragile bones. She thought silence meant surrender. She never realized silence is where strategy grows. The months that followed were slow, thoughtful, intentional. I cleaned out my father's old files, reliving memories I had locked away. I opened the accounts he protected and used them the way he meant me to. To build, not destroy. I repaired my relationship with my mother. Her recovery wasn't linear or fast, but each day we spoke felt like stitching something back together. And Liam? He disappeared into the edges of the world. Quiet and haunted. Last I heard, he testified against Elena. But he didn't reach out. And I didn't chase him. Not every character needs to re-enter the final chapter. Some belong to the shadows they came from. I didn't need to fix him. I didn't need closure wrapped in silk and apologies. The only closure I needed was mine. One cold morning, I found myself walking by a small park bench. The same one where the story began. The place I once gave away my warm boots to a stranger without knowing who he truly was. The wood was still cracked. The iron still rusting at the edges. I sat on it quietly. So much had changed. But this bench, this small, insignificant part of the world, had stayed exactly the same. And in that moment, it felt symbolic. Not everything in life transforms. Not everything needs to. Sometimes the world remains still, so we can see how far we've moved. This story was never about revenge, I said softly. It was about clarity. About stepping out of the shadows cast by powerful, broken people. About choosing not to repeat their mistakes. It was about walking alone when necessary, and choosing silence when others demanded chaos. It was about my father's legacy, and breaking the cycle my aunt tried to lock me in. I stood, brushing the frost from my coat sleeves. The sun rose slowly over the hills, turning everything gold. A new beginning, quiet, unforced, unchaotic, just mine. If my story meant something to you, if you saw yourself in the quiet moments, the strategy, the survival, stay with me, subscribe, leave your thoughts, share your own resilience. We grow stronger by telling stories, especially the quiet ones.